They called me a thief in front of everyone, like I was some criminal. Like I snuck out in the middle of the night with a chainsaw and robbed my own land, and I had to sit there and listen while the HOA president pointed at me across this long table and said, "You stole $60,000 worth of timber from Silver Lake Preserve property." And all I could think was, "Lady, you cut down my trees and you're calling me the thief. You know what I mean." My name is Daniel Cole, and I live on just under 8 acres of woods outside this planned neighborhood called Silver Lake Preserve. Real pretty marketing name. Private lake, matching mailboxes, all that, and then you got me. Not part of their HOA, not under their rules. Just me and the land my grandfather left me, which is old hardwood. Red oak, black walnut trees that have been standing longer than some of those people have even been married. And that's important, because the only reason any of this even happened is because they wanted that land. And I wouldn't sell. Silver Lake Preserve has this woman in charge. Cheryl Grant, classic HOA Energy Blazer clipboard. That tight smile, like she's doing you a favor, while she's stepping on your neck. And I'm not exaggerating. When I tell you, she showed up at my door at 6 in the morning once, banged on my glass, like she was serving a warrant. And I opened the door in sweatpants, and she goes, "Good morning, Mr. Cole. We need to talk about getting your property into compliance." And I remember just staring at her, like compliance with what, trees being alive, and she didn't even flinch. She said real calm, "We can't have unregulated brush lines and unapproved structures visible from community roads. It lowers perceived value." And I'm standing there barefoot like, "Just so we're clear, I don't live in your HOA. Your rules don't apply to me." And she just says, "Daniel, everyone is subject to something." And that was the moment I realized this lady was not playing neighborhood watch. She thought she owned me. They made offers to buy twice, both. Lowball, both with this attitude. Like I'd be stupid not to take it. And I said no both times, because my grandfather used to walk me through those trees when I was 8 years old and say, "You don't sell this, Danny. This is ours. This stays in the family." So no, I wasn't selling it, so they could bulldoze it and call it Phase 3. And I thought that was the end of it. Like we all understood each other until one cold October morning. I go do my normal walk along the north boundary with a thermos of coffee, and I feel like I just walked into a crime scene. 12 trees were gone. Not branches, not storm damage, gone. Stumps still wet sap, bleeding out sawdust all over the ground. Deep tracks like heavy equipment had come through and dragged the logs out while I was sleeping. And you don't understand how big those trees were unless you've stood next to a 3-foot wide oak. Like that is money. That is history, and it was just gone. I could still smell diesel. Whoever did it had been there not long before. My whole body went cold like numb, and then I went into work mode, because that's what I do. I document things for a living. I write technical manuals, so I started taking pictures, wide shots, boot. Next to stump for scale. GPS coordinates for every single cut logging. The time logging. The weather measuring diameters. With the tape I keep in my truck, writing down every detail, because if there's one thing I've learned in life, it's that people lie. But paperwork doesn't. And then I find this little laminated plastic tag, half buried in the mud, like somebody dropped their name badge, and it says Silver Lake Land Services, Site Prep and Clearing, with the same little tree logo the HOA uses on their newsletters, and I'm standing there holding that thing between my fingers. Like, oh, so they didn't even try to hide it. They just walked onto my land with machines, stole almost $60,000 worth of hardwood, and slapped their own brand on it like I was supposed to thank them. So I call the sheriff. Deputy comes out. Young guy, respectful. Walks the property line with me. Takes his own photos. Writes it up. And you can tell it's not his first property fight. Because after he finishes, he's like kind of quiet, mister. Cole, I'm gonna be real with you, Silver. Lake throws a lot of money around in this county. Get your deed, get a surveyor, get an attorney. Don't let them turn this into boundary confusion. And when a cop basically tells you, hey, man lawyer, up that fast, you know you're about to have a long month. By that afternoon, I had pulled my deed, called a surveyor, called a timber appraiser, and by sundown, I already had 2 certified things in writing. 12 trees were 100% within my boundary. Not touching HOA land, and 2, the value of what was taken was just under $60,000. And I swear to you, like clockwork, at almost the exact same time, my phone dings with an email from the HOA. Subject line in all caps. Notice of violation. I open it, and my blood pressure honestly spiked. It's from Cheryl. Dear Mitt Cole, it has come to our attention that you conducted unauthorized logging operations on Silver Lake Preserve Association common property adjacent to your parcel. You are hereby fined $500 and ordered to submit a restoration plan within 10 business days. Failure to comply will result in legal action. I just sat there laughing that angry laugh, where you kind of sound crazy because I could not believe the level of confidence, like they stole my trees. Then sent me a bill for damaging their forest, like I vandalized their property, like I was the problem. You get what I'm saying. Next day, I get a text from a number I don't know. Daniel. This is Blake Mercer, Vice President of Development for Silver Lake. We can handle this quietly. 2 p.m. tomorrow, Clubhouse. Come prepared to discuss repair costs. And yeah, I went. Because at that point, I wanted to look them in the eye. So picture this, because this is where it gets unreal. I walk into their Clubhouse conference room, and they're all already seated like a board of directors. 7 of them. Long table. Giant windows looking out over their little man-made lake. And there's an empty chair at the very end for me, like I'm the defendant. Cheryl's at the head in this pale blue blazer. Perfect posture, not even pretending to be friendly. And on her right, there's Blake. This guy in a suit that probably cost more than my truck. And you can tell he's used to getting his way, because he keeps that little, relax, buddy, we can do this the easy way smile on his face the whole time. Cheryl starts talking like I'm a naughty kid about environmental damage and unauthorized cutting of association timber. And then Blake slides this color-printed map across the table, and I swear to God on that map, my property line is moved 30 to 40 feet south, like they just took an eraser to the county records and redrew my boundary. So the whole strip where my trees were is suddenly labeled Silver Lake Preserve Common Woodlands. Then he hits me with, we know this is a misunderstanding. Nobody wants to escalate. So here's what we propose. You acknowledge the corrected boundary. You agree to stop logging. You pay a $500 fine. And in return, we won't pursue you for full damages. You know that moment when your body goes hot and cold at the same time. I slid my folder onto the table. Here's my recorded deed. I said, here's yesterday's survey that matches last year's survey. Here's GPS data for every stump. Here's a licensed appraiser saying, you took $58,400 worth of hardwood off my land. And here's the little calling card your crew left in the mud. I pulled the laminated Silver Lake Land Services tag out of my pocket and set it in the middle of the table. Question. I said, do you guys always leave company branding at the scene of a felony? Or was that like a grand opening special? Blake's smile dropped off his face so fast, it was kind of satisfying. Not gonna lie, Cheryl didn't drop hers. She just leaned back and went cold, and she said, super quiet, super calm. Daniel, you need to understand something. You are one person. We are a community. Fighting us is not in your best interest. And that right there, that tone, that was the moment I stopped thinking this was a fight about trees, and I realized this was a robbery with paperwork attached. After that, they turned up the pressure. There was a post in the Silver Lake Residents Forum calling me unstable and a potential threat, saying I was harassing the HOA board, which is wild because all I'd done at that point was exist. But people I'd never met started commenting like, "We have kids here," like I'm some danger to the neighborhood. Businesses I use all the time suddenly couldn't fit me in. Then I get hit with a cease and desist from some big city law firm saying I'm being sued for defamation for spreading false statements that damage the reputation of Silver Lake Preserve Association. And they're asking for $500,000, which, just so we're all on the same page, is not about money, that's about shutting you up. That night was the first night I was actually scared. Not angry, scared. Sitting at my kitchen table thinking, wow, they're going to take my land, drag my name, and convince everybody I'm the bad guy because they've got money and matching polos and a newsletter. And then I got a lawyer. Her name's Julia Price, little office above a bakery. Calm voice, eyes like a scalpel. I told her everything start to finish, and she said one sentence that flipped a switch in me. She said, "Stop acting like you're defending yourself. Start acting like you're building a case." And I swear something in me just settled. 2 days later, miracle moment. A car pulls into my driveway at dusk. Older woman steps out, looking over her shoulder like a spy in a movie. "You're Daniel, right?" she says. "My name is Linda. I'm the treasurer on the Silver Lake board. I can't stay long." My heart's in my throat because I'm thinking either I'm about to get served with something or this is about to change everything. She says, "What they're doing isn't right. Cheryl and Blake planned this. They literally said, if you won't sell, we make it painful. They hired Blake's own crew to cut your trees, then called it site prep, so they could pay him out of HOA money. Then they were going to blame you for destroying their land and fine you until you caved." I'm just staring at her like you heard them say that, and Linda looks me dead in the face and goes, "No, Daniel, I recorded it." She airdrops me an audio file right there in my driveway. You can hear Cheryl clear as day, saying, "He's blocking phase 3. He's not going to sell." Just because we ask nicely, so we apply pressure. We frame it as a boundary issue, so it looks like he's attacking us. And you hear Blake say, like he's talking about weather, "We'll clear it, and then bury him in legal. He'll fold." And honestly, hearing that, I stopped being scared. I got cold. Julia listened to that audio and said, "We're done being quiet." And she took the whole package, my survey, my photos, my GPS logs, the fake boundary map. They tried to hand me the audio of them, literally plotting to break me, and she brought it to a local reporter named Marisa, who covers county politics. And 2 days later, there it is in black and white, on the front of the county paper: "Homeowner accuses Silver Lake HOA of land grab scheme. Claims $58K in timber taken." And that article laid it all out, including that Blake's company was getting checks from the HOA and calling it community work. And that right there, that's when the fear switched sides. Because Silver Lake tried to get ahead of it by calling this big, special community meeting to clear up misinformation And they thought it was going to be them on stage, and me outside pounding on the glass, except over 100 people showed up. The local news showed up. My lawyer showed up, and I showed up with a folder and a projector. Cheryl sits up front, like she's still queen of the cul-de-sac. Blake right next to her in his expensive suit, and she starts the meeting with, "We're here to heal after the lies that have been spread." And a woman in the back literally stands up and goes, "No, we're here because you stole this man's trees. Let him talk." And everybody claps, and you could see Cheryl's face crack for half a second. I got up there and I laid it out calm. Property map with my deed overlaid showing the real boundary. Time-stamped photos of the stumps. GPS coordinates lining up with my survey. Certified appraisal saying almost 60 grand gone. The email where Cheryl fined me $500 for damaging association land. The payment from the HOA to Blake's company 2 days before I found the cut trees. And then on a mic in front of all their neighbors, I played Linda's audio. You could hear Cheryl's voice say, "If he won't sell, we make it painful. We call it a boundary issue so it looks like he's attacking us." And you could hear Blake say, "We'll clear it," and then bury him in legal. He'll fold. And that room went from buzzing to silent to exploding in about 5 seconds. People started yelling, asking where their HOA dues went, asking if Cheryl had been paying Blake under the table, asking if they were next. Cheryl jumped up and started screaming about illegal recordings and context, and Blake, God bless his ego, just snapped and said into a hot room with cameras rolling, "He's blocking phase 3. That's 15. Premium lots. We took action because he refused to be reasonable. And you could literally hear people go, "Wow," like he had just confessed out loud. Which he kind of did. And then one of their own residents stood up and said, "I motion to remove Cheryl as HOA president and bar Blake from handling any association funds." And somebody else yelled second, and hands went up, and it was done. Cheryl lost the room. Blake lost the room. And I walked out into the parking lot, shaking not from fear this time, just from everything hitting at once. And my phone rang, and it was Detective Warren Pike from the sheriff's office saying you'll come. Cole. Based on the evidence provided and statements made tonight, the district attorney is opening a criminal investigation into grand theft, criminal trespass, fraud, and conspiracy to intimidate a property owner. I'll need you at the station at 9 a.m. to give a formal statement, and I just leaned against my truck and stared out at their perfect little lake with the fountain lights. And I thought you tried to take my family's land. You tried to smear my name. You tried to make me the problem. And now you're the ones under criminal investigation. So let me ask you, and be real with me in the comments because I want to know how people see this. Do you think HOAs keep neighborhoods safe and beautiful, like they always say? Or do you think sometimes it's just certain people playing king of the block because nobody pushes back? And second question, if you were me, do you take a quiet payout and walk away? Or do you do what I did and drag it into the light so it can't happen to the next person? Tell me where you're watching from, and tell me if you've ever had someone with a title or a badge or a clipboard try to scare you into giving up something that was yours. Because I'm starting to think this isn't just me.